Hey my good people, Mike Hidalgo here. Thank you for joining us on another FCP Euro DIY. Today we're going to be working on a 2011 Porsche 911S. Today we're going to be covering how to replace the oil and filter on your 911S. This is specific to the 9A1 model engines. So your Carrera .2 is what's going to have this engine. Today we're working with our Look-A-Molly oil change kit that we feature on the site. Comes with 8 liters of oil, a Mala filter, as well as a new drain plug and crush washer. A couple things to note, the capacity for this motor is 7.5 liters typically. You're going to see the kit comes with 8. One thing to note, if you're doing a full new engine replacement, your capacity there is going to be about 10 liters. Typically, we recommend you do your interval anywhere between 3,500 to 5,000 miles. And something to remember, our lifetime replacement guarantee covers our oil, so you can replace it as frequently as you wish. Now that we've taken a look at some of the things we're going to be using for the DIY today, let's take a look at the tools we're going to need for this job. And now into tools. For this job, we have a couple of basic tools, starting with a torque wrench and a regular 3/8 ratchet. We have an 8mm hex. If you don't have an 8mm hex, 5/16 will do as well. We have a 36mm socket. This will be to get our oil filter cap off. And a pick tool. This comes handy when getting in some tight spaces during these jobs and or removing our O-ring on our oil filter housing cap. And then off camera is a catch pan for our oil, of course. Now we have our tools sorted, let's go ahead and get started on this DIY. Before we get started on draining the oil, I always like to remove the oil fill cap. It just allows everything to flow out a little bit easier. So I'm going to twist that off and just set it to the side. Now let's head underneath the 997 and drain our oil. All right, my good people, now that we're under the 911, we're going to go ahead and start by draining our oil. For this, you're going to need a 8mm hex or a 5/16. I'm just going to put one on my 3/8 ratchet. Break that free. While I undo this, I put constant pressure up on the drain plug and then I pull away just so I don't take a bath in it. Now we're going to go ahead and let that drain. So we'll catch you in about a day or two, but for you it'll be 10 seconds. All right, at this point we can go ahead and reinstall our drain plug and crush washer. Our kit does come with a new one. I'm just going to wipe this off a little bit. And again, this is a 8mm hex or a 5/16 if you do not have one. And then we're going to torque it down to 37 foot-pounds. With that torqued up, we can now head up top and replace our oil filter and then fill it up with oil. Now back up top, we're going to go ahead and get ready to remove our old oil filter. Before we do that, I like to take a couple shop towels and just tuck them in to help catch any oil that might drip out when I pull out the filter. Mainly at the bottom of the cap here. And then we're going to get some more to cover up our air box openings. You don't want oil dropping onto your air filter. Just something like that, nothing crazy. You're going to take your 36mm socket. This shouldn't be that tight, it's only torqued to 25 Newton meters. All right, at this point it is completely loose. And slowly lift it up. Set that off to the side. We gotta replace that O-ring before it goes back in. Now we can go ahead and pull out our oil filter. Take our towel. Then if you want to, you can go ahead and give everything a quick wipe in here. Just be sure not to use something that's gonna leave any lint behind. You don't wanna clog up your new filter right off the rip. From here, we can go ahead and replace the O-ring on our cap using a small pick. You can use it to pry off the old one. You want to note there is a channel dedicated to the O-ring on the cap. You want to make sure your O-ring lands there. O-ring, your seal, tomato, tomato. Beautiful. Now from here, you can take your oil filter and you can slip it onto the cap. It simply presses on. This is a soft opening up top, just like that. And at the same time, you want to make sure that your new O-ring is a little bit lubricated just so it seals nicely in the housing. Now we can go ahead and install our new oil filter and then place it in the housing. And it's going to press on to the engine side of the housing. This is a soft opening up top, so it just expands as you press it onto your block. You can take your cap with your fresh O-ring and start throwing that on by hand. Note that you may have to tug the air box back a millimeter just to get that started. I'm just going to take our 36 millimeter on our 3/8 ratchet and snug it up. And then we're going to torque it down to 25 Newton meters. As you can see, it's not a lot. Doing it by hand basically got it there. All right, now with our oil filter situated, we can now begin to fill our engine. Something that's really cool about this car that I really like is the fact that it's got a telescoping fill tube. So it gives you a little bit easier access to get in there instead of having to shove your oil jugs in there. Now, so I'm no aimsmith. Is that a word? It is now. Aimsmith? Like a blacksmith? To avoid any spillage, I'm still going to go ahead and use a funnel. Just place that there. And then as added insurance, I'm going to take a shop towel. And same thing as I did on the other side, I'm just going to cover my openings on my airbox and my alternator a bit. Doesn't hurt to be safe. We're going to start with our small 1 liter jugs. And we're going to fill it up to 7.5 liters. We'll run it and then we'll check our level and make sure it's good. With our 7.5 liters in, we can go ahead and then run the car for a few minutes, let the oil settle and check our level. And to do that, you're just going to simply put the key in the ignition and turn the key, and your oil level reading should come up on the cluster. To go through your menus, you're going to use your lower left stalk. And you're going to push forward to access your information. You can reach oil, navigation, audio, all those settings. Once you see oil, you're going to push forward, and then it's going to tell you to measure the oil, you need to have the vehicle idling. So we're going to go ahead and do just that so we can get an accurate oil reading. As you can see, our oil level is good, so we can go ahead and wrap up this job for the day. And there you have it, my good people, another DIY in the books. Overall, a pretty straightforward job and a good beginner's DIY if you haven't worked on your car yet. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments on what we did today, leave those in the comment box below. And if you like this DIY and you want to see more like them, please consider subscribing. We make new ones all the time. As always, thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.